I really appreciate your work on this, but next time, if you could do this other thing, because this one problem that happened, didn't work out great. So if you could do that next time, that would be great. Instead of saying, you did so great on this project, and I think it would be even better if we switch this area. What do you think if we made a change in this area? Like now the person is empowered. Now they're like, I am amazing and I can do even more.
What's
Instead,
up, listeners? Welcome to another episode of Light Beyond Limits, where we talk about the breakthroughs and the stories that people have had with their limitations and the lessons that they learned from it. I am so excited today, as your host, Coach Willie Blake, to be able to introduce someone who is absolutely amazing, Miss Nicole Kernohan, who I've met back in June of 2024 when we did the speaker hearts, and we both spoke. We were both the last speakers, and just the bubbly energy that you have, I absolutely love. And Nicole being a coach and the CEO of Elevated Worldwide, just an amazing individual. She's overcoming MS-induced paralysis and living symptom-free for over 20 years, which is incredible. She now helps others harness mindset for freedom, peace, and success. Nicole has been featured in Success Magazine, co-authored the Book of Human Empowerment, and delivered the TEDx talk, How Words Impact Your Reality. Nicole, thank you so much for being on here today.
awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. And I'm the COO, not the CEO. I do get that mixed sometimes because it looks similar in writing, but I run the operations, not
I,
the.
I swear my mind, from me, I thought I said COO. So I'm
Well,
glad that
maybe
you
I've heard
caught
it
my
wrong.
dyslexic mistake. I love it.
I love
Oh,
it.
yes,
Empowered.
COO. Nicole, we love just the first off before we start our conversation is tell my audience about who you are and the journey that you've been down.
Awesome. Well, I think one of the biggest things that impacted my life was like you briefly mentioned, where I was just living life happy. I was a pretty upbeat, bubbly person, like my childhood, and just generally unaware of problems around me. But then when I was in university, I did have this perfectionist tendency, which I'm sure many people have, and I kind of stressed myself to the max. Like it was like as if I didn't get an A on this assignment, I was not going to make it through. Like it was so significant. It's totally not realistic, but in the moment it felt real. And at that time in my fourth year of university, I was when I had that MS episode for the first time, where I lost the functionality of the right side of my body, essentially paralyzed my right arm, my right leg. Prior to that, I was a generally healthy, average. I'm a Canadian, but the average Canadian diet, like I didn't exercise much or eat really healthy, but I was moderately fine. I wasn't like, doing anything obnoxious that would make me prone to having any major health conditions. But yeah, that was the time. That was my moment where became paralyzed on the right side. That was the turning point for me. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But once I healed and I discovered how to do that, it's my own personal journey. I'm not a doctor. It was actually funny that for many years I didn't talk about it. I didn't like once I recovered, I just like pretended it didn't happen. And it was many, many years later when people found out about it that they realized that I realized that it was inspiring, that it allowed other people to realize, wow, if you have overcame that, I can overcome something else. So I do share my story now, but for many years, almost 10 years, I kind of just hid under it. I was almost embarrassed that I don't know. It was interesting when I look back.
So it
Uh,
happened, you recovered from it, and then you told people. So not many people knew while you were going through it.
like my friend, people in that, this was 20 years ago
Sure.
now, just to be clear. So in my life, like my parents and my grandparents knew, and my close friends. Obviously, I couldn't go to school, but it was only about 2 months like that where I was between when I was diagnosed. I still had MS because the disease doesn't go away officially, but I didn't have any more active symptoms. So it was about 2 months where I was able to function pretty well again. I could write again, like gradually over time. I relearned kind of how to write and how to walk. So it was not a huge amount of time. So friends and family, but we also didn't have Facebook back then. So I
Yeah.
think Facebook came a little while after that, maybe not too long after that, but shortly after that. So it wasn't like people knew publicly through social media. It was only just people who were close to me. So when I joined the workforce, I just didn't tell people, by the way, a few years ago I was paralyzed and I got an MS diagnosis. I just didn't say anything. And the people who didn't know my past didn't know. Because it was really interesting. And maybe listeners might feel the same way, or might some people might resonate with that. Like I was almost, I didn't want people to think I had a disease or some kind of disability that would make me less likely to be considered for a job or for an opportunity, or I feel like less valuable in society. So I just would like hide my experience, and then I just realized that was actually the opposite of what it made me more valuable and more inspiring to be able to see that. And like I felt more powerful to know that, wow, she can overcome that. She's going to be awesome. So anyways, thank you
That
very much for listening to that little segment, but it's an interesting thought pattern.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it. It's like my audience knows I have dyslexia, and I share it with them all the time. Like when I was younger, I didn't share it. Like I
Yeah.
didn't tell anyone. And it was just something that happened. Kids thought that I was just a dumb kid who sucked at reading, that it flowed over into how I process information and stuff. And it wasn't until I think middle of college where like I started to share that I have dyslexia, and then realize, wow, it actually is inspiring to people. And so
Mhm.
it's a lot of people can relate to that, and especially the audience that's listening. A lot of people can relate to, we kind of hold back the challenges that we face.
Mhm.
It's like the I'm not going to go to a doctor until I'm healed type thing. Like if I'm sick, I'm not going to go until I get better. When it's like, no, the doctor's reason is to help you heal, and us telling other people, it's to help them feel inspired, help feel connected and empathy, help them feel like they're not the only ones going through stuff, but we all are in some way.
Yep. I remember hearing Tony Robbins, who shared the biggest problem that we all have as humans, I guess, the biggest problem we have is that we think we shouldn't have problems, right?
Okay,
We
yeah.
realize we all have problems, and problems are here to let us grow. That's how we learn. That's how we try something and then that doesn't work. We try something else and that doesn't work. We try something else and then we just we grow and evolve, and if we don't share our problems or our challenges, then it makes us feel less, like you said, less relatable, less connectable, right? I became so much more connected to people when I started sharing my story. It happened by accident. I think I forget when I started sharing it. I shared it once or twice with people, and they were like, "What? You what?" And I thought, well, what's the big deal? I had that disease and then I figured out how to heal myself and then I got better. Like, oh my goodness. Now I know. I look back and I can see that it is profound that you're learning to live with different symptoms or different conditions or different diseases or whatever challenges that people have. When you learn to move through life in an effective way with things, it is absolutely inspiring and empowering. But it's so funny, right? It's interesting how humans think that that's a bad thing instead of actually a growth, an opportunity to shine.
Yeah, I don't know if you also realize this, but when it comes to like information that we know is true, like eating salad is better than eating cake. That's just a give me when it comes to health. But a lot of people, they know that when they say it to other people. They know that when they share it with their family and friends. But then there's like this veil or barrier or something that once it becomes us, that we're like, "Oh, but that doesn't apply to me." And
Hmm.
so we're like, whenever friends need advice or need compassion, or that, we're like, you can keep going, it's just a simple mistake, you got this, you're awesome, keep moving forward. But then once it comes to us and our inner talk and inner self, we're just like, you made a small mistake, how dare you make that mistake, how dare the existence of you to not be perfect in everything that you do. And there's this disconnect that happens. Have you seen that as you've
Oh
been
yeah.
going throughout your
Yeah.
life and the people you've connected with?
Yeah. Yeah, big time. And I do see that a lot with people, even that I work with, where they feel not worthy of, so not just like hard on themselves if they make a mistake, like that is not, but also hard on themselves about their potential. Like, you've got so much potential. You've got this. I believe in you. But me, I could never do that. No, I don't. I'm not. I don't. I make too many mistakes. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm too, like, we don't see our own potential the same way that we often see potential in others. And it varies quite a bit from person to person because all of your thoughts and paradigms
Sure.
and
Yeah.
beliefs are different. And I see that so often. And part of the personal work is just remembering what who you are, and that you and what potential you do have. That you are just as capable. If someone else did it, then you can too. If anyone else has
Yeah.
done it, even if they haven't, you can too. You can. However, when we see someone else to do it, that allows, it should be validation. That means it's possible for you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you a question in relation to kind of the hard things that we faced. For you, Nicole, what was a hard thing that you chose to give up, but in the end was worth it?
Mm. Okay, the first thing that comes to mind, I like to trust my intuition. So the first thing that
Love
that
it. Love it.
comes to me with that question is gluten, food
Okay.
related, not, any lots of other things as well that I've shifted in my life. That was the first, this was 20 years ago, or maybe 22 years ago now, at which point there were not very many gluten-free options. It wasn't like a thing so much. The gluten-free bread was made with rocks. I don't know. It was like,
Did,
nowadays there's so
did,
many gluten-free options that mimic other wheat-based foods that you can eat. It's not as hard. It still can be challenging, but it's not as challenging because there's so many alternatives now that are more expensive. But but they exist. Um, but yeah, that was my biggest thing that I'm answering that because that's the first thought that came to mind. That overnight, I met with a naturopathic doctor, and then I did a little research on my own that suggested, this was when I had my MS diagnosis and paralyzed. They said that that gluten, it's not the cause of MS, but it could be a factor in affecting the neural pathways in your brain and inflammation and all sorts of things. And there is some research, a lot more research on that today. Um, but anyways, for me, I just literally overnight said, it might work. Okay, it's out. Like, I decided overnight to be gluten free, even though it wasn't proven like a fact that it was going to help. And I did many other things. That wasn't the only thing I did. Just if anyone's curious for my journey with health, that was one of the things I changed. And it wasn't that hard for me. So you said, what was the hardest thing? It wasn't that hard for me because I believed it was going to work. Most important, even though they said it may or may not work, like most doctors, I believed it was going to work and help me heal. And so therefore I was willing to cut it cold turkey. And I literally ate no gluten from that point forward. Uh, well, for a whole entire year, or maybe multiple years, where I was 100% gluten free. And then as I was feeling good and doing well, I maybe had a little bit here or there.
sure.
But still, that was like 20 years ago. So it wasn't that hard for me because of my mental state of what I believed what was possible. I believed in myself. I believed I could heal. I believed it would help. I believed the naturopathic doctors. But what I found was most people find it very hard to change their diet. Like, people would hear me say that and say, "How could you possibly have gone gluten free overnight?" So I have analyzed myself over the years to say, how did I do that, and why didn't it feel that hard? I didn't say, once I clear out my cupboard, I'll just finish eating the pasta that I have on hand and the loaf of bread, and once I'm done with that, then I'll go gluten free. It was like, nope, that's being donated to my roommate. and so anyways, I'll leave it with that, and then we can dig in further if you have any other questions.
Yeah. So was it for celiacs or was it just a choice that you chose health wise?
For MS, multiple
Oh,
sclerosis.
okay.
Yeah.
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 That's incredible.
And that's why multiple sclerosis, I think, is even more. less direct correlation, especially at that time with diet. With celiac, if it was celiac, which is then it would be there's a more direct correlation with gluten. With multiple sclerosis at the time, there wasn't as much correlation. So it was like I'm choosing to believe that this will help based on the information that I have. Like people want a magic pill, but it doesn't
Yeah.
exist. But if you believe it's going to work as a magic pill, you're more likely to commit to it every day.
Yeah, kind of like the placebo effect,
Hmm.
where they give like they get where excuse me, where they do the experimentations with people who have been taking medications for years, that instead of those they do sugar pills, and they realize that same effects, and it
Hmm.
actually wasn't the medication, it's just them thinking about it, and
Hmm.
it's the mindset that they have.
Yep, absolutely. The body is incredible. Absolutely.
Body
Hmm.
mind, when they're connected, goodness gracious, how many things can we do?
Hmm. Yeah.
And speaking of things we can do, you are on a TEDx stage just a couple months back, right?
Yeah. In was it October? September, October 2024.
Yeah.
A few months
Tell
ago.
tell us about it. What did you speak on? How was that experience?
It was so incredible. It was a studio talk, so it's a small studio audience, and they record it. Um, oh man, I'm just so grateful. Like when I look back and connect the dots and how my life even led up to that opportunity, right? Because it's hard to plan ahead for certain objectives. Sometimes you look back and you can see how I met this person and I was willing to do this thing, and then I met that person and I took this risk and I did that scary thing, and then you can look back and connect the dots that was a vision in my mind, but the path that I got to it was not what I could have possibly predicted in my own planning stage. So it was really powerful. My topic was around the words that you speak and how they are influencing your thoughts, how they influence your perspective, the way you see the world, how they're influencing the people around you, and ultimately how they influence your actions and your results in life. So the power of words is something I'm so passionate about because of my own life experience and just also with having worked researched and worked with many people over the past 10 years. Hmm.
Yeah. Has that helped when it comes to like cutting cold turkey things off using
Hmm.
your words?
100%. Oh yeah. I definitely. So, as an example, I mean, I don't know, I don't remember what I said at that time because at that time I would have called myself an unconscious competent. I was doing a lot of the practices within positive psychology and mindset and having a vision, having belief, knowing who you are in self image, using words and affirmations, and having a goal that you're visualizing. I was doing all these things, but I didn't know that I was doing it per se. I mean, I knew I was doing it, but I didn't know there was science behind it. I had never studied positive psychology or mindset. It was like that's why I would call it an unconscious competent. I did a lot of the things that led to some in some areas really powerful experiences, but I couldn't articulate it at the time. So I would imagine the words that I would have said were, I am choosing to go gluten free, not I have to, or I can't eat that. This is super simple example, but it feels completely different when you are empowered in I am choosing to make this choice because it works for me. I believe it. I believe that this is working for me and I'm choosing this versus my doctor said I can't have that. So I shouldn't. I really shouldn't have that because I he said I shouldn't have that. I better not. I can't. That would not be good. Like there's a completely different vibe and feeling. And it's like the empowered version that you're choosing and moving with positive and powerful momentum versus the victim version of I can't and I have to and I shouldn't. It's like, right? Take this action or do this thing, whatever this action is. Like I'm just using my own experience of gluten. Just such a simple example, but it totally changes. It changes your ability to commit consistently. If it's a choice, then it's like I'm making it. I'm choosing this. This is my own option. I'm not forced to. I'm making this. It's a choice. Like then it's so much easier to commit consistently when you're empowered to make a choice. So I love those words.
Yeah, it brings the power back. And a lot of the time, just like you said, us as humans give away the power that we have because we say we have to do this. Or if you're going towards a goal, I'm going to make sure that I exercise every day, or I'm going to read 10 pages a day. And all of those, they're great. They're better than like super negative words.
Mhm,
But at the same time, it's like let's evolve it a little further. Instead of
mhm,
you having to do something, you get to do it. You
mhm,
get to do it. Like you have the conscious choice of whether to go to an event or stay home. Conscious
mhm,
choice of whether to walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes or go eat that last slice of pizza in the fridge. Like
mhm,
we get the choice. And then when it comes to our goals, I'm going to do that. That seems like a wish. But you say, I'm I'm going to do this and then add more onto it.
mhm,
Today at 4 p.m. And if I don't do
mhm,
it, enact this consequence. Like we can add a little bit more to one, bring back power and accountability, but then two, be like, we get the power to make the choices in our life. And
yep,
we get that power. And it feels so great to be able to say, I have control over my life rather than pushing it off to individuals that we might hate, who
mhm,
we might have to surround ourselves with that aren't the best individuals of influence, or just throwing it out into the universe of being like, universe, take the wheel. You got this. When
mhm,
the universe has always been like, I trust you. You do what you need to, and I'll help deviate you where it needs to happen.
mhm. That's a beautiful way to say that, by the way. I love that. Yeah, I also think with this idea of just on in the power of words and the words I am choosing or I get to, it's also knowing that that means you can choose to not do the positive habit that you're trying to do, or you can choose to not take that risk, and you can choose to eat the thing that it doesn't fit your meal plan, and then because you're choosing that. Like I'm not so like it just also allows you to occasionally there may be times where you're saying I am going to choose this and I'm not going to feel guilty about it because I'm choosing this today. But if you continue to make a choice that's not productive for you consistently, you're going to also continue to get less than optimal results. And like no, you do not have to be 100% perfect in order to make extreme progress in business, in health, in any area of life. Like it's like the feeling of guilt is worse than doing the thing itself. Like so there's so many aspects when it comes to our words and our perspective and our self-image, right? I think people have to believe enough in themselves to be able to tell someone that they respect, I am choosing to not go to that event or I am choosing to go to that event. If historically they were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I feel bad, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it. I wish I could, but I just," and instead of saying, "You know what, I would love to be there, and I have this other obligation that I'm really excited to commit to today, so I'm gonna do that instead today, but I would love to come to the next one." Like eh, right?
Yeah,
It's such a difference. It's the same message, even the same intention in a lot of times, but the way with which you say it, and also you may have noticed, Willie, not just the words, but the energy, right? The vibe, the tone in your words, totally changes your results. And it
it
changes,
does.
yeah.
And I don't know if the listeners caught it, but I'm sure you have, and while you've been practicing it, but you don't use the word but, you use the word and, because you're like, you say, I would love to be at this event, and I am choosing this way instead of but, because a but with having a few kids, I know that whenever we say but, it feels like it cancels out the first part of the sentence, and that the only thing that's true is the next part. So if someone comes up and says, "I love you, but you need to change this." Internally, it feels like you scratched out the "I love you," and it was just about that second part.
Mhm.
There's so many different examples with that, but well, and have you noticed that in your language that you switch that from the but to the and?
Oh yeah, for sure. I have intentionally switched that. Most of the time, I still occasionally
Sure.
slip in a "but" here and there, and there may be a rare occasion where it's okay. I might even say, "I think that maybe is the right word." Uh,
Yeah.
I don't have an exact specific example. I love it. I love it, especially not with kids for sure, even with coworkers or employees. You did so great on this project. Instead of, we know when you get a report card or your kid's report card now and there's all A's and one C, like all you can think of is what happened with the C. And that's what happens when you say but. Like I forgot what you said before. All I'm focused on is the problem, that area where I'm not good enough. Like our innate human desire to be accepted and loved, like clings to anything where we might appear to be not good enough.
Yeah.
So it really makes a huge impact. And also, to our point earlier, is saying that to ourselves. Say and to yourself. And I next time I can do even more. Not but. Like don't use language effectively for others and then ignore yourself. Because that's
Yeah.
definitely common. Hmm.
As being a coach and being someone who's out there teaching people, sharing positivity, changing my mindset, how to transform the ways that you're able to do things to get the results that you want. Had What is one of the biggest things that you've seen that has been a hurdle for those individuals, and how would you recommend getting past that?
One of the biggest things, words is a big one. The words that they use is a big one. So I'm glad we had a little chat about that.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things is their general lens with which they see the world and with which they see themselves.
Okay.
The lens with if they see the world from more of a lens of lack, of "Well, we can't afford that, there's not enough time, there's not enough money, there's not enough love, people are out to get us, I'm not good enough, there just isn't enough." If that's the lens with which they see the world, which is not their fault if they were programmed with that, because most of the way you see the world was programmed by your whole life experience up until now. A lot of it was in childhood, even by well-intended parents, right? Who said, no, 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 we can't afford that. Oh, no, we can't afford that. Oh, no, we can't afford that. No, there's just not enough time. We can't go to that thing because there's not enough time. We don't have enough time. They may not realize they were saying that, but those words influenced someone's current lens, the way they see the world. And so if they're like, I want to go after this big goal in life, but the subconscious programming is, I just don't think I have enough time and I never have enough money and I can't afford it. It wouldn't be smart to spend money on that. I probably should just be happy with what I have and I shouldn't want any more than that anyways. And like these are programmed patterns of thoughts and beliefs that were programmed. You're not born with that. You're born with creativity and persistence and commitment and like, out of my way, I'm going to get what I want and I'm worthy of it. And when you create more in your life, people around you benefit. It doesn't hurt people if you're doing it with well intended.
Yeah.
Like your creation is what your spirit is made for. It's not meant to hide and cover up and stay small. But if that's the lens with which they see the world, which we do find a lot of people, some of the time, a lot of the time, or all of the time, see the world that way. Like 80% of people have a portion of, or the majority of their time see it that way. So shifting their lens is the biggest hurdle we have to overcome. It's like we don't even want to try to make you, don't want to force your action to try to get a goal if you're subconsciously consistently every day saying there isn't enough, I'm not enough, I don't have enough time, and I shouldn't want that. So it's like changing the lens, the chatter, the deeper rooted perspectives first. Um, and it's an ongoing process. Like we do some work to help them do that, partially through gratitude, actually. So you shift that, but it's not like you just arrive and then you permanently have a positive lens. Like we're human. So society is showing us all the reasons why we should be in fear and lack and not enoughness. So it's a continuous process, like that you just know, oh, okay, I'm stuck in lack. It's not true. I'm going to choose to see a different perspective. Is it true that there's not enough time? Well, maybe I could create time actually if I did these other things. So shifting their lens, and it's often through kind of, yeah, some subconscious reprogramming.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know my audience. I have an acronym for my what I call one word why, which is
Mhm.
light. And the G in light is for gratitude.
Oh,
And so when I
awesome.
share with people about gratitude, one of the activities that I share with them is what I call the grateful three, which is anytime a negative thought or a thought that you just don't want in there anymore comes, you got to say three things you're grateful for. So if you're like, oh, I gotta go to my mother-in-law's house, it's like, okay, three things you're grateful for. Well, I'm grateful for my wife, I'm grateful for my kids, I'm grateful for water. But what I'm not grateful for is the trip that catch yourself. Three more things you're grateful
Yeah.
for. Well, I'm grateful for the people I talk with. I'm grateful for my phone to message, and I'm grateful just to be where I'm at today. And it's over and over again. Every time that gets caught, just say three things you're grateful for. And I've been doing it for 6 years now. And the thing is, you can't repeat any of the ones that you said previously. And over the last 6 years, I still have not been able
Yeah.
to because, and I think I'm not the only one. I think when we truly get into a mode of gratitude, there is so much we can be grateful for. Like
Mhm.
our fingernails, our fingers, the air that we breathe, the little molecules that do their own little things that we aren't able to see and visualize. It's just amazing everything that's going on. So for
Mhm.
you, as you tell people about gratitude, is there an exercise or activity that you recommend people doing?
We do have like a yeah, the whole process. I think that I love what you're saying about that. I think gratitude is so simple that it could easily be dismissed
Mm,
for the magnitude of what it truly is. When you practice, even though I love what you suggested, right? Having three things you're grateful for, catch yourself when you're in a negative thought and say three things you're grateful for. Um, the willingness to do that, because they have to commit to that. It's like when I
yeah.
went gluten free. Do you believe that that's going to change your life? Because if people do that every time they caught a negative thought, and then and if they catch themselves saying, "Oh man, I had a negative thought earlier and I forgot to do my gratitude. Now I have a new negative thought about the fact that I forgot to do it." Then do it now, right? But if people actually committed to that consistently, like you did for 6 years, it completely can change the trajectory of your life. The will like, gratitude is so profound. It just seems simple, and it seems like it could be just like, "Oh, I'm thankful for these things." It's like so I guess one of the things I will add to it is that it's really important to get into the feeling of gratitude. So not just thinking the thought of thankfulness, which is helpful and important. It's like, how does that make me feel when I think of that person? How does it make me feel
Yes.
when I think I have this clean drinking water that millions of people in the world on this planet today will never experience? They will never have a fresh cup of clean water from anywhere. Like they just will never experience that in their lifetime. Like, wow, like that's incredible. I feel so grateful. And the clouds are never the same twice. Like there's some basic,
Yeah.
simple perspectives that if you can get into the feeling state of what it makes you feel, um, can shift your lens, can totally shift your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Mhm.
staying in the realm of gratitude, Nicole, for you, what has been the most profound relationship that you've had in your life?
Hmm. Oh man, I've got a lot in my life, and it's funny because I like to trust like I said, I like to trust my intuition and trust the first person that came to mind. And it's kind of funny. Maybe when you said profound, this is so the person that came to mind is not my husband or my parents, although they had a deeper connection. It's Bob Proctor.
Yeah.
Because he was my first teacher in this industry of positive psychology and understanding the mind and paradigms and habitual beliefs. And he's the first person who taught me that you can go after a goal that's something you don't know how to do yet. Before that, I thought I can only pick a smart goal. I have to, and smart goals can be useful on the way to bigger goals too. But I could
Yeah.
only pick a goal that I knew all the steps. I can't pick a goal that's beyond what I can connect the dots to. And then he was the first person that taught me about like like frequency, like your goals on this frequency and you're living down here on this frequency. And it was the first time after 10 years after I'd healed myself. I'm healed from MS symptoms. I still technically have the diagnosis because I still have lesions in my brain. So
Yeah.
it's like that's currently the status. But he was the first person after 10 years after I'd healed myself that explained to me what I had done. In like I said, oh, now I understand. I changed my frequency. I had a goal that was beyond what I knew how to do. I believed it. I changed my habits. I did all these I shifted my belief. I had 100% unwavering faith. Like it was like it articulated a system. Like success is not a secret; it's a system. He always would say. It's like now I understand the system to what I was successful in, and also because I now know that, I could see why I wasn't successful in other things because I couldn't apply what I did there into here because I didn't understand what I had done. So it was like I felt like the lights turned on in a dark room. I was really stuck in my life at the time that he entered my life, and 10 years ago. And so, yeah, that's who came to mind. It was my eyes were opened to. I thought people, did everyone know this and I was living under a rock, or did did no one else know this? And I discovered many people didn't know that. Like many
Yeah.
people, my family didn't know that. My friends didn't. So, yeah.
It's funny. I've had that same experience. Like the first time I jumped into anything self-development and that, it's just like, has this been here like my entire life? Am I just out of the box and just haven't noticed it? And then I talked to everyone around me. They're like, who's this? Who's that? What's this principle? What's this paradox mind shift thing? Just like, okay, I didn't miss the boat. I'm glad.
Yeah, it's so funny, right? Yeah, that's cool that you had that similar moment
Yeah.
because it's so profound that you're like, how could we not have learned this before, and how could this have been here all along? I mean, it is a newer industry, like positive psychology and really digging into the mind. Like 50 years ago, it was not something that people talked about. Like it probably wasn't even researched back then. So
Yeah. Probably back then it was like Napoleon Hill and Stephen R. Covey were the heads of
yeah,
going out and doing it. Oh, Bob
yeah, yeah.
Proctor, amazing individual. Late
Mhm,
Bob Proctor, hearts out to him.
mhm,
Um, just such an amazing individual.
mhm.
I'd love to ask you, Nicole, as we come towards the end of this wonderful episode that we have. Again, thank you for jumping on. The If you could magnify a strength that you have, which one would it be?
Oh my. Well, one of my biggest strengths, which I now embrace for quite a while, I tried to dim it because I thought it wasn't professional enough, is my positivity and my upbeat, bubbly nature. I used to try to be like, oh, I should probably be more professional in this environment. And so I believe that that is a strength now, and it's so cool when you can find something about yourself that, someone who talks a lot, maybe, I don't know if you did, Willie, but if you're also speakers sometimes when they were kids talked a lot, and maybe we're told stop talking, you got to be quiet, we've got to be focused in the room, so we dim these parts of us because we think it's not appropriate to show that aspect all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, my positive, upbeat, bubbly nature is something that I have stepped into, even just more so in the past few years. And I know that's part of why I'm here, is to just be a light for others, just being in my presence. And hopefully does not saying that from ego, or hopefully doesn't feel like anyone's hearing that from a place of ego, because that's not what it's meant to be. I just trust that we're all given a purpose, and that was part of what I was given for my purpose, is to be able to be be a light, just my presence. So if I say hi to someone on the street and walking by and they feel a little bit better because I was upbeat and smiling and making eye contact, then they're like, oh, that person was really nice. I'm like, we didn't even have a conversation, but hopefully they feel a little bit better. So I would love to magnify that and spread that to more and more people, or multiply that aspect of myself, to make a bigger impact.
Oh, I love that. And thank you so much for stepping into it. Cause that's one of the things I love is that you're so bubbly, so positive. Like as I am trying and as I am working on uncovering those buried leaves myself, that's one of the things I'm finding within myself. It's just like I'm always that kind of like silver lining dude. I'm the one that's always just like I love smiling, I love learning about people. I like my curiosity kid within me is trying to get out. And
Mhm.
it's amazing that individuals out there who are listening and who just walk the world, that they don't get those chances, and not that they don't have the power to, but they don't do it. And because of society and how grade school or schools or teachers or whoever it was that came into your life, and it was just like, no, you can't do that. That's not how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be this way. It's pretty sad. So I'm very grateful that you stepped into it and that you're a freaking light to this world of positivity. Positive. There you go. There's my dyslexia. Positivity and bubbliness.
Awesome. Well, I'm also grateful that you stepped into that for yourself, and because you are such an inspiring example for others as well. And yeah, you also do have that just very inviting, bubbly presence, and like me, I don't know if bubbly, but like upbeat and inviting and friendly. And
No, we're bubbly. We're bubbly
yeah,
people. Let's
that's
admit
probably
it.
okay. That's probably why when you asked, like, "Hey, do you do podcasts?" I'm like, "Yes, I do podcasts." I love that. So
Oh,
it's exciting.
that's
Well,
awesome.
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. As we go to end this, I want my audience to know how they can connect with you, and I know that you also have something to share. So now would be the time to be able to share that with them.
Awesome. So I would say I do love to share. I briefly mentioned earlier the abundance journal. It's a digital journal, but people can download it. And just inviting them to answer some questions and consider different aspects of that perspective of maybe how they see abundance in their life. There's a financial component of abundance, but abundance is also in any area of life, and just helping people to kind of work through some of their beliefs and thoughts around abundance. So I would go to keepelevated.com, and there's just a tab at the top is free abundance journal. And then people can follow me on social media for sure. I do post quite almost, most days. I'll share tips and some quick video clips with inspiring messages and information. Just Nicole Kernohan on Facebook, that or Instagram. That would be great as well. Maybe we can put the links in the notes after.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, everyone who's listening and watching, look in the description. Those links will be there to the wonderful free resource that Nicole's given, as well as if you guys want to connect with her, her social links there. I like to do one last thing called the final question on my podcast. So I got this idea from Stephen Bartlett, the podcast Diary of a CEO, and he does this final question thing. And I'm like, I love this so much. We're doing it here. So what it is that the person I last interviewed left a question for you to answer.
Oh,
And afterwards, you'll be able to give one for the next person I interview to answer. So let me pull it up. And the question for you, Nicole, is if you had the power to make one of the points you made today stick or unforgettable to all who hear it, what would it be?
my first gut response is that change your words and you can change your life. I might just leave it at that.
That mic drop. Boom. There you go. Thank you,
Mhm.
Nicole, again for being on here. And thank you, listeners, for listening and watching this wonderful episode. If you found inspiration in it, go ahead and subscribe to our podcast, Light Beyond Limits. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, as well as you can go to our website, coachwillieblake.com. There you'll be able to find the link to the podcast, link to the socials, and everything else going in the Achievers universe. And until next time, my friends, continue to light up the world, continue to be the best version of yourself, and always remember that you're in control. And as you work on your mind and as you go forward with the wonderful people that are around you, that you're going to get the results that you want. And it all starts by taking that first step. We'll see you on the next episode of Light Beyond Limits.